rain and sunny weather. And I hate the beach and mountains too. Boo-hoo. And I don't like a thing about the city. No, no. And I hate the countryside too. And I hate everything about you. Everything about you. And I don't like a thing about your mother. And I hate your daddy's guts too. Boo-hoo. And I don't like a thing about your sister. No, no. 'Cause I think love is overrated too. And I get sick when I'm around. I can't stand to be around. I hate everything about you. Everything about you. Everything about you. Everything about you. Some say I got a bad attitude, but that don't change the way I feel about you. You think all this might be bringing me down? 'Cause look again, I ain't wearing no frown. And I get sick when I'm around. I can't stand to be around. I hate everything about you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tracy. Welcome here to Unity of the Seacoast, online and for people here. Please silence your cell phones if you haven't done so already. The daily word today is comfort. Loving memories comfort me. There may be days or maybe even weeks on the calendar when I find myself mysteriously feeling melancholy or blue, only to realize the anniversary of someone or something I have loved and lost is approaching. Even when I don't realize it outright, a part of me remembers and responds. I can honor these feelings as a way to honor the people and places that have taught me and helped me evolve. Welcoming my feelings brings deep and abiding comfort. I carry those people and places I love with me in the things I do, keeping their spirit alive. Gradually, I find smiles within the sadness. Revisiting treasured memories reveals the love within the loss. The presence of God is found within the gift of each moment, and I find comfort through my grateful heart. Psalm 119:76. Let your steadfast love become my comfort, according to your promise to our servant. Comfort. Loving memories comfort me. Now I'd like to say our mission statement. We are a loving, nurturing community dedicated to being a positive path to spiritual living, oneness of God within us all. The first Monday of each month, we have a meditation by Charlie Richard, one of our members here. You can tune into that on Facebook or on our YouTube channel. You can also see our services on Facebook and the YouTube channel. You can get to these channels to see the service by going to our website, and there's a button that you can click now that makes it easy to get to the day's service. If you want to see talks that we've had in the past, they're all archived on the website, so you can just click on them on the website also. We also have a donate button on the website. So for people who are looking to donate to us to help us support our church, you can go on the website. We use the Tidely app. The Tidely app is easy to use. You can donate weekly or monthly or just one time, any way you want to. For those who want to send money to us by mail, you can send it to McConnell Center, Suite 246, 61 Locust Street, Dover, New Hampshire, 03820. To find out other events that are happening at Unity, you can go on our meetup group, and all the events are listed there along with the titles of what Tom is talking about each week. And one of the things we have coming up is our annual meeting on June 11th. So if you're able to come to the annual meeting, it's really helpful. It gives you an opportunity to vote and tell us what things you would like at Unity. So we would love to have as many people here as possible for that. On the second Saturday of the month, we have an acoustic music circle from 2 to 5. Anyone is welcomed. People from the church or people from outside the church, have your friends come. It's a lovely time. The first Friday of the month is game night, and it starts at 6:30. We have adults and children here for game night. We play boards and we play cards and have a great time. And our big yard sale for the church is coming up. It's next Saturday from 9 to noon. So please bring your things if you're willing to donate, or you can reach me at Tracy Hutch, TracyHutch 50@gmail.com. If you want to talk to me about donating something or volunteering for the yard sale, we can use as many volunteers as possible. Yeah, we do.
And if you can't remember Tracy's email, just reach out to me.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, or you can reach out to me through Messenger also. Let's see. So today's talk is necessary emotions. We look at emotions and feelings we wish we didn't have. Next week, the talk will be on feeding the masses. It's Tom's favorite talk. It was the first talk he wrote, but it's one of his favorite messages. He hopes everyone will come. June 11th, he will be talking about Revelations. Now I'd like to do a tradition that most Unity churches have. It's one of my favorite traditions of this church. It really makes me think about how much I care about people and trying to see the best in everyone. There's a little bit of a twist. Linda Kay found a nice saying that goes along with namaste that I would like to say today. Namaste. I honor the place in you where the entire universe dwells. I bow to the place in you that is love, light, and joy. When you and I bow to our true nature, we are one. My soul recognizes your soul. We are the same. We are one. I honor the place in you that is the same as it is in me. If you're at home, just put your hands together and bow to someone you're with or recognize us here. Thank you. Eight, eight to noon. Oh, I'm sorry. I said 9. It was written wrong. It is the yard sale starts at 8. It is until noon. So it's 8 to noon. Thank you for that. Yes. Yes, thank you. So now I'd like to take a minute and introduce our minister, Tom. Oh, I missed a song. Oh, I did it again, Barbara. Oh, my goodness. Now I want Barbara to play a song. Thank you, Casey. And the choir.
So you probably noticed the music we've picked today is kind of edgy because it's about negative emotions. And this one was written by Bob Dylan. It's called Masters of War. And it's from the perspective of the average person who's pretty disgusted with the machine of war and how just certain people profit and then regular people have to go into battle and die. And so it's wordy, but it's a long story. I think it applies to any war, not just the Vietnam War, which I believe he wrote it for. Come, you masters of war, you that build the big guns, you that build the dead planes, you that build all the bombs, you hide behind walls, you hide behind desks. I just want you to know I can see through your masks. You that have done nothing but build to destroy. You play with my world like it's your little toy. You put a gun in my hands and you hide from my eyes. And you turn and run, Father, when the fast bullets fly. Like Judas of old, you lie and deceive. World war can be won. You want me to believe, but I see through your eyes, and I see through your brain, like I see through the water that runs down my drain. You fasten all the triggers for the others to fire, and then you sit back and watch while the death count gets higher. And you hide in your mansions while the young people's blood flows out of their bodies and is buried in the mud. You've thrown the worst fear that can never be hurled. Fear to bring children into the world, for threatening my baby, unborn and unnamed. You ain't worth the blood that runs through your veins. How much do I know to talk out of turn? You might say that I'm young, you might say that I'm unlearned, but there's one thing I know. Though I'm younger than you, that even Jesus would never forgive what you do. Let me ask you one question. Is your money that good? Will it buy you forgiveness? And did you think that it could? I think you will find when your death takes its toll, all the money you made will never buy back your soul. And I hope that you die, and your death will come soon, and I'll follow your casket on a pale afternoon, and I'll watch while you're lowered into your deathbed, and I'll stand over your grave till I'm sure that you're dead.
Wow. Well, I have to say that these songs this morning don't feel. They don't. I love that. That made everything so much better, Bonnie. These songs are not the typical songs that we would sing at Unity, and I'm so glad that Barbara clarified, because you couldn't see I wasn't on camera yet, but the face that I was making after that first song, oh my Lord. But seriously, it is important, I think, for us to think about how there are people in the world that think negatively almost all the time. And lots of times I really hope that somehow we will reach them, meaning we, people in the world who try to stay positive, can reach people. I think about politics when I think about that, mostly because of war and arguments. And I hope that people can learn from each other in a positive way. But the songs do make sense given Tom's talk today. Tom's saying, no, no, no. Want to welcome Tom here up for his talk. Thank you, everyone.
All right. So Tracy, welcome back. Tracy's been in Florida, so we're glad to have her back.
I'm glad to be back.
I'm going to move these. I'm going to do my best to stand this whole time. We'll see what kind of strides I make. I don't know how to follow that. Even though this talk is about negative emotions, it's kind of a positive spin on it. For those who aren't here, except for Lynn, Charlie pointed us out. It seems like we're very segregated here. We have the women on one side and the men on the other side. So at some point, we'll learn to unite because that's what unity is. So I am thankful to be here. I always am. And just so you know, each week I am getting a bit stronger, enjoying every part about this more and more. And I've not enjoyed it less. But with what's going on with my health, it's been difficult at times. So I appreciate really everything that everyone's done to step up. Charlie, Linda, Tracy, Bonnie, everybody. I don't know how I could have pulled this off, Barbara, without you. And I'll probably say this over and over again, Linda. It's all of us that makes this happen. And I am truly humbled and blessed by everybody's participation and care and love. And thank you. So I want to give everyone a big namaste. So namaste to everyone. Today's talk is negative emotions. They're necessary emotions. We often talk about our emotions, and you might get the idea that negative emotions are bad and that we need to dismiss them. Perhaps we feel we need to hide from them or cram them back down until such time as they go away. But what happens is they find their way to get noticed. They're going to get heard, whether we want them to or not. They're going to show up in irritation, to rage, to depression, to illness. They show up as stress that can cause anxiety or heart issues. They show up as addiction and dependency. But they will fight to get noticed. And although our mind is spiritual, our body and mind also responds to the physical. Remember when I talked about balance? Well, there's also a balance between the physical and the spiritual. And we hit moments where we feel separated from the kingdom, from our best selves, from who we want to be. And the Bible gets this, Jesus gets this. In Luke 13, and I don't want to quote the whole verse because it's a long verse, but he speaks of this. And basically he says, there are times that we see the kingdom, and for whatever reason, we're just not achieving it, or we don't feel there. And there will be gnashing of the teeth. And I really love this term because it's something that we can all identify with. It's as simple a term as you can get. And I don't think that people, when they often hear gnashing of the teeth, they put it in as basic terms as stuff that we do all the time. But it's something we all identify with. It's something that's very individual. We all have this stress reaction at points in our lives. And it comes from worry, misperception. It comes from a number of things. But by the time this happens, by the time we're gnashing our teeth, we've let certain emotions linger and dwell and control the situation. You know, we're all good at processing love, happiness, excitement, zeal. We're great at processing all the balanced emotions that make life comfortable. Contentment, relaxed determination, fortitude, and such. We all know that feeling, and we're comfortable with the feeling of when we're in balance. But what about those emotions and feelings that we run from? Disappointment, fear, anger, guilt, grief, apathy, jealousy, those things about us that make us feel insecure, or sadness, rumination, those things that a tendency we have to dwell on things far too long, worry, shame, loneliness, contempt, hate, disgust, and I'm sure there's so many more in combinations and variations of all of these. Well, these negative emotions, they tell us something about ourselves. They must be recognized for what they do. They actually have a purpose. We deny these emotions, and we even tell ourselves that we're not worthy of solving these emotions or addressing them. And then we create situations that limit us from achieving our highest state, our Christ-like nature, our best self, our personal I am. Do we remember the definition of sin? I mention this a lot, but it means to miss the mark. It does not mean what's more commonly thought of as a pathway to damnation. It comes from an archery term, meaning to miss the center. And you can look it up. But when Jesus spoke of sin, he talked about telling us of missing the mark. He would often tell people to sin no more or stop missing the mark, their personal mark. It's a lot more palatable to hear that than someone saying you're sinning and you're going to hell. When you're missing the mark in your life, we miss the mark on trying to achieve our best self. And I like this version of sin, and I like to talk about it because it's much more accurate and palatable than the damnation version. And I like it because it applies to all aspects of life. When we're addressing our negative emotions, or when we're not addressing our negative emotions, we're creating a pathway that makes it harder to achieve our best nature, to achieve our best self. We're missing the target on who we want to be, our Christ-like connection or our true I am connection. Any of those labels kind of mean the same thing. We're trying to live the best life that we can, to be in touch with ourselves and the world around us. And what I love about all this, it's so awesome that we can break it down in simple, doable terms. And that's what spirituality is about. It's this feeling of understanding that we can apply in all moments of our life, from creating our life to manifesting things in our life, to healing that which we struggle from. We get to interact with all aspects of life and care for ourselves and, again, the world around us. We get to examine and re-examine our thoughts and our opinions and the reasons that we do the things that we do. And spirituality is not a set of doctrines. It's not one way or the highway. We all get to choose our own pathway. It's unique to each one of us. It's using all that the universe has to offer. And that includes emotions that appear to be negative. Jesus is telling us to address the ways that we miss the mark, not his mark. He never ever says and tells people what their sin is. Why? Because we all know the ways that we struggle with. It's one of the most beautiful aspects of Jesus and the gospel. It leaves it up to us to know what we need to work on. It's not one rule fits all. It's many sizes and shapes for all people. We all know when we act in anger or we behave in a bad way, when we're reacting to loneliness or guilt. We may not know how to solve these issues, but we know. And when we also know when we act of fear or we react in a way in which we've been conditioned or the way that we've been raised. And about a year ago, I was asked to give a blessing at a 5K run, and it was a run to honor those in our lives who have passed away. And I spoke of grief, and I mentioned that when Jesus was told Lazarus was dead, it is said that he wept. It's the shortest line, the verse in the Bible. Those two words, he is telling us that it's okay to grieve, and it's okay to have all the emotions that come with grief. And a little while later, a man sought me out, an elderly man, and he had been crying. And he thanked me because his wife had passed away a couple of years ago, and he had been conditioned to hold that grief in. He felt those around him expected him to be stoic and to not show emotion. And he told me that he realized he needed that permission to cry, and that when he did, he felt closer to his wife than at any time since her death, that my words of Jesus gave him that permission. You see, grief has a purpose. Although we do not like the feeling, it reminds us of how much we have loved and we were loved. Recognize the grief. Let it do its job. Cry it out when you need to. And when grief has done its job, balance will begin to set back in. You'll be able to think of that person and to find joy in the memories. You'll see things that remind you of them and you'll smile. And at times you will cry again. And when this happens, thank the grief for allowing you to know how much you have loved and have been loved. You know, there are times in our life when we feel lonely. For whatever reason, we feel separate from others. We wish others could see us as we really are. Loneliness is another painful emotion. But we understand that it's not up to others to seek us out. Loneliness is telling us that we need to take action in our lives. We need to find the things that inspire us. Loneliness is hard to overcome because it's tied with fear. We fear rejection. We fear rejection in a new venture, joining a team or a group. We fear others may find out that we're not worthy of attention. We fear separation from those that we love. We went through this on a national level with COVID. Sometimes we're missing the people that we want in our lives, and we fear rejection from them. But we must understand that that is on them. They may not be willing to see you for whatever reason, and maybe their reason is valid, and maybe their reason is just valid to themselves. Maybe they just don't have it in them to see you through a new perspective. If you've wronged another, forgive yourself. Take the steps to get back on the path. Repair the wrong if you can. But at minimum, acknowledge it. They'll solve their end at their own time, hopefully, and perhaps maybe they won't solve it. But the great thing about our world is that there are people everywhere, and there are people who want to hear from you. I remember living in Florida, and I knew very few people. So I went to a local pub to watch the Red Sox games, and soon I found a group of people who did the same thing. And we would go to events, Red Sox events. We saw the Dropkick Murphys as a group. During football season, I found a group of people who just loved watching the games. Didn't matter whatever game, but we had a table reserved. So on Sundays, we would all show up and watch the games. And we became close. When someone had a problem, we would help each other out. One guy's car broke down, and we got together to repair it. Another guy's well at home went, and we got together to repair it. I joined Unity. I joined an acoustic circle, and I'm still friends with many of those people today. That change of forcing myself to go out made me a better friend. It made me bolder. It made me more inspired to do the things in life that filled that void. I found comfort in playing my guitar. I found myself being invited to barbecues and luncheons. I was asked to co-host an open mic at a tiki bar. When you use loneliness as a motivator, you get to build your social connections and you build your social skills. So loneliness is less difficult because you begin to develop the tools to overcome loneliness. Fear and worry. Those are the ones that we all face in our lives at some point. Fear and worry tells us that we need to be aware of something. Some fear is simple to solve. I have fear when I talk. I solve it by talking. But the fear doesn't go away. But I can use this fear because I do my best to make sure my talk is worthy of an audience. I have fear of my health. But I set a plan, I trust in the plan, and I get back to today. When we worry about something or have fear, it's telling us that we need to address something. We need to set a plan. And until we do this, we are unsettled. Maybe your fear is you need to apologize to someone. Maybe you don't have enough money in the bank to cover expenses. Maybe it's fear of change. Maybe it's fear of your emotions. There are as many fears and worries as there are at each new moment. But each fear, each situation requires addressing to see if a plan is what is needed. You have to find the next steps to take. But at minimum, just be open to the possibility that there are steps to take. And just be open to them coming to you. They all show up. I know they do. I know they do for each one of you. And how do I know this? Because we all made it to today. We're all here. Now, I don't know what your plan for each situation is, but I know when you have fear or worry, you make a plan. You trust in the plan, and you get back to today. Let fear do its job and let it go. Do not let fear rob you of a future moment. Like all emotions, we do acknowledge them. And then we let them do the job and we let them go. When I feel disappointment in myself, it's told me that I had to address something in me. Either it's an insecurity or the fact that I just did not live up to my best self. Maybe I set a goal, maybe I let it slip by. Stack up enough disappointments and it can be a great motivator for change. Disappointment in others tells me that I first must need to recognize that we are all human. We're all living this life. Maybe I had expectations that I shouldn't have. And sometimes people are just going to let you down. Maybe they're hurtful. But more likely, they're just living their life in their direction. And you had no business taking it personal. In the event it was personal, acknowledge it. Let the regular flowing emotions that would follow that happen and play their part. But be aware to reset your balance and let go of that. There's apathy. When we catch ourselves being apathetic towards something or someone, it's an opportunity to look at why we have this feeling of disconnect. Apathy has two sides to it. Apathy towards another's plight can be a special form of hate. When we're apathetic toward crimes against others or humanity or starvation or abuse, it's the same result as the hate that perpetrates it. Apathy toward prejudice does not solve prejudice. It allows it to continue. When we let things slide or turn away, we really need to go inside and reflect on why this happens, why we feel this disconnect. But there's a wonderful side of apathy too. Apathy can be self-protection. Sometimes we have to turn away from another's problems because we can no longer carry the weight of it anymore. The story of the boy who cried wolf is a story of moving from caring to apathy. When someone continually burdens others with their problems but takes no steps, no effort to make it change, apathy can be an appropriate response because at some point you need to protect yourself and not carry their baggage. When I was depressed, I needed apathy from others to motivate change. Might not be the solution to all, but that apathy gave me pause to reflect. It gave me a chance to look back at myself and start making the necessary changes. When we're apathetic, we need to look and understand why we're feeling separated or disconnected. But we also need to look at maybe it's just self-protection. Interventions are a great example of caring through apathy. Apathy for the right reasons, self-protection, and hopefully creating a new rock bottom for the person to raise themselves up. Discomfort in the body and the mind tells us that we need to be aware that something within us isn't right. You know, we have this wonderful system on the physical end. You know, if our body feels cold, long before the cold can do the damage, we get signals. It's telling us to make an adjustment, whether it's to turn up the heat or to put on an extra layer of clothing. And it's a great system because it hits us subtly instead of feeling cold just as frostbite sets in. When we feel heat, it's the same way. Something is off. We need to react. Sometimes it's a mild change. But if we ignore it, it can build up the heat stroke. Sometimes it's rapid. You put your hand near a burner, immediately you know, pull it away. I need a change. Pain in our body tells us that something is off. Sometimes it passes, and sometimes it needs to be dramatically taken care of. Well, our negative emotions are similar in how they work. They are there to trigger a response and an awareness. Once they do their job, again, let them go, get back to living. When they linger, they do damage, stress, illness, mental illness, depression, and maybe subtle things like we become mistrusting. We're easy to anger, and disappointment begins to jade away at the way that we see the world and the people in it. Little comments are taken personally, or you start to say things that you have a hard time returning from or recovering from. First perceptions can trigger emotions like that we need to address. Maybe our first perception is to take things personal. We need to examine why our first response to something is to rally our defenses and assume what just has occurred is about us and is a negative attack. Do we dwell without giving it true thought? Do we react in ways that brings us results that we do not want? Do we create scenarios in our head that tells us we are right and the other person is wrong, and all our reactions flow from that perception? Now, first perception is important to have. It's the first step in self-protection. But when we use the same perception over and over as our default perception, we must examine it. It's a starting point in self-reflection. We all have default perceptions. And can we accept that our perceptions are often a response to past conditioning? Maybe we take everything as a slight against us. Maybe our perception always makes us feel like an outsider. Maybe we apply this default response to every situation. And when we do that, we need to step back. Have the default perception. Have that reaction, acknowledge it, but then step back and see if it is a true perception. Often it is not. We're taking something personal that was never meant to be personal. See if a new scenario fits. Examine the history of the relationship who you feel might have slighted you to see if that matches your response. Looking for a new scenario can change your whole perception in so many aspects of your life. Last week I was told a story. I have a friend, she took a trip. She did not speak the language. And when she ordered food, usually someone had to lean over and help her. At one point, she got confused driving and turned the wrong way, creating a traffic problem. Another person had to help her move her car and get it to the right part of the road. It was not an aspect of her trip that she found that she did not depend on someone else. She felt a sense of relief when she arrived back in America, and the signs were familiar and she could talk with ease. She felt anger when she thought about her trip, and she put it down as one lousy trip. But later, upon reflection, when her anger was let go, she thought about her perception of it, and she realized that it was a wonderful trip. She met so many people who openly helped her. She tried new foods and drinks. People, although they didn't understand her, found ways to give of themselves to make this lady's trip easier and more enjoyable. Up to that moment, she had been basking in anger. Felt, poor me, what a waste. And then she realized what a great trip it really was. And for me, I am so thankful that she told me this story, because it made me reaffirm that I need to look at new perceptions myself. So you're probably thinking, okay, Tom, what's the point of this talk? How do we apply it? Well, for every change and commitment that we do in our lives, it requires really doing the work. You slip off the path, maybe you step back into an old way, maybe you dwell in worry or fear, or at times grief cripples you. Again, negative emotions are necessary, and we must let them do their job and acknowledge them. And we must learn from what they're telling us. In a sense, feeling the heat and removing your hand. Allowing grief to do its job. Thanking it for letting you know how much you have loved and have loved. Feeling worry and allowing it to tell you what you need to be aware of and what the plan is. A few weeks ago, I talked about the 12 powers. And I'm sure they sound good. And perhaps you let them slip by. But this is a good time when you have negative emotions to re-examine your 12 powers. To have faith in your ability to weather and find a path to a solution. To try and find enthusiasm in each step. To see if you can add love or wisdom into the process. To understand that it takes will to do the work. And doing the work is key. It's our fifth principle. Letting go of worry is hard, even when we set a good plan in place. But we do it by deciding where our power is. And often our power lies in what each negative emotion is telling us. The power is power when we use apathy for self-protection. But at the same time, there's power in using empathy and compassion and love. Sometimes we need to use our imagination to really sit back to find a more fitting outcome, to create that new perception. One that's not shrouded in the negative results. One that doesn't allow fear or worry to dwell. In the end, release is a big part of this. After all the negatives have done their job, it's important to release them. This is not always an easy step. It may take time, because I was reminded by a friend this week that often we may not be aware of what we need to release. And our greatest tool is to meditate, to sit quiet, to listen to that still, soft voice. We do a meditation here each week, but it's a guided one. It's not a traditional meditation. In fact, today's will be far from traditional, because it goes along with Memorial Day and my thoughts on that. It does not allow you to have the freedom of your mind to go deep and to explore your own personal soft voice, your own connection with God. So you make time to sit and meditate on your own. Seth used to have a wonderful line. If you cannot find 10 minutes, then you need to find 20. I've said this many times. We are a spiritual being, and you've heard this from other people, having a physical experience. And I believe this because I don't believe our physical or our spiritual ends upon the physical death. But we also are having this physical life, and we must acknowledge the whole of all the emotions. There's a reason for this. It's part of being in balance. Negative emotions are there as much as a part as any other emotion because they're there to learn from. And then we let them go. We cannot have a full, encompassed life without all the emotions. Negative emotions are there to help us find and experience the good, just as we cannot know light without darkness. Without the negative, we would not notice the positive. I'd like to turn this to a meditation. I'll step away while we do the meditation song.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. I'm your child while I run this race. I'm your child while I run this race. I'm your child while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain.
What a wonderful song.
There we go. Awesome. Did anyone see the Celtics game last night? We got. If you didn't, look up the final minute on YouTube. You're going to see the most exciting game that it's as good as any you'll ever see in the history of sports. No, it's against Miami Heat. At 3 seconds left, they were down, losing the game. Really, Miami is celebrating. Every Boston fan is just like, and then what happens was amazing. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So today's meditation is different. I did not want to let Memorial Day go without acknowledging those who have gone in defense of our country. And there's been a plethora of people who have defended our country. When Memorial Day comes around, we generally think of male sacrifices. With reason, because policies have kept females from participating in that, but also lousy policies which have banned, homosexuality or limited that. I want to address that in a couple of weeks because I have a very dear friend who was in the Navy, who was asked to leave the Navy. And it's a wonderful story of triumph through all this. But today I want to focus on a lady and females in the military. I'm going to ask you to get comfortable. Find your comfortable breathing pattern. We'll do a moment of silence at the end, and we will pass over the prayer for others. So you can think of those in your moment of silence. But I took this from the New York Times, and it's about a girl named Nicole Gee. One of the last photos that Marine Sergeant Nicole Gee shared with her family from Afghanistan shows her dusty body armor with a rifle, her long blonde hair pulled back, her hands in tactical gloves, amid the chaos of Kabul. Those hands carefully cradled a baby. It was a moment on the front lines of the Air Force where the Marines worked feverishly to shepherd tens of thousands of evacuees through chaotic, dangerous razor wire gates. It showed how even in the tumult, many took time to comfort the families who made it through. In a short message posted with that photo, Nicole Gee wrote, "I love my job." She never made it out. She was one of 13 troops killed when a suicide bomb ripped through the crowds at the gate, killing nearly 200 people. The Defense Department officially identified the service members who were killed, and family and friends paid tribute to their lives and their sacrifice. She believed in what she was doing. She loved being a Marine. Her brother-in-law, Gabriel Foucault, had said she would not have wanted to be anywhere else. She was of Roseville, California, one of two women in uniform killed at that gate. The other was Marine Sergeant Johanny Rosario Pajardo, 25, of Lawrence, Massachusetts. Sergeant Rosario was commended by her unit in May for excellence in a supply chief job usually given to someone with a higher rank. Her service was not only crucial to evacuating thousands of women and children, but she epitomized what it meant to be a Marine, putting herself in danger for the protection of American values so that others might enjoy them. This job was created because it needed a woman's touch to identify the women coming to try and escape as we left Afghanistan. These two females volunteered for this job in Afghanistan, which seemed to be only could be carried out by women, searching other women and children as they passed through the gates. But these two sergeants were also standout Marines, and it's slowly changing where we're putting more women in combat roles and positions of leadership. For most of military history, women were not allowed in combat. The few admitted to the Marines largely did clerical work. And in 2001, at the start of the Afghanistan war, women were not assigned to gate duty because of the danger. But the Marine Corps slowly and often grudgingly opened those combat jobs to women because they saw the necessity. And now they make up about 9% of the force. It's still a small part of the force compared with other military branches. But every year, more and more women find their way to the front, bearing the burden equally with men. Expanding the rights of women, giving them access to education and to work outside the home for years was one of the goals of our mission in Afghanistan. And as the Taliban advanced into Kabul, painting over ads depicting women in Western dress, they were telling women to stay indoors. The nation saw that progress crumble. When the Marines took over security at the airport gates, these two young sergeants found themselves standing on the dividing line between a society which had open opportunities toward women and a society slamming the doors shut. Now here's an important part what struck me. Sergeant Gee grew up playing softball, never thinking about one day she might join the military. When her high school sweetheart, Jared Gee, enlisted in the Marines, she decided to follow, and they soon married. She was described by her friends as vivacious, confident, bright, strong, and she excelled in the Marines. She graduated from her corporal school at the top of her class and was promoted ahead of her peers to a sergeant in Kuwait, not long before landing in Afghanistan. Photos from the airport show her walking young girls across the tarmac to a Hoken cargo jet, or standing next to long lines of Afghans, helping them work their way up the ramps to the planes. She was not intimidated by the demanding, largely male role and world of the Marines. She was a trailblazer in a sense. When she did something, she did it all the way. And I really think that she tried to surpass the men. One female Marine who served with her called her a beautiful soul and a complete badass. Now, I mentioned that those parts were important, especially the softball and that life, because everyone who serves is a copy of you and me in some way. We're all living our lives until we give of our higher selves. And Memorial Day is those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, who gave something above and beyond what many people would do. And they're in every corner of our country. They play softball. They're on our bowling team. They service in restaurants. They hold office. They wear different colored dresses and outfits. They love different types of people. There are different skin colors and tones. They have high voices and low voices. We are all a collective. And it's these people that have built our country from the beginning and maintained it as the beacon of democracy in the world. It's a debt I can never thank or repay. I am probably the only family member who did not enlist in my history. I was actually kicked out of the enlistment office, but that's a story for another time. So I want to take a moment of silence to acknowledge everyone who's not only sacrificed their life, but who's participated in that. And I truly thank you. And invite you back. Again, I thank you for allowing me to indulge you on that. We're not going to do the prayer for others today, but we will do the collections and the prayer of tithes and offerings. If Tracy, you can help me.
Heaven guide me, heaven show me the way, heaven guide me, heaven show me the way when I'm lost and confused. Heaven lead the way when I'm reaching for you. Will you meet me halfway? Heaven guide me, heaven show me the way, heaven guide me, heaven show me the way.
You get the divine love adds me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Amen. We'll end this on the prayer of protection, and I'll step away and we'll do the peace song. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. And we are richly blessed. Thank you all.